In a bustling city in Africa, a young boy named Daniel roamed the streets alone. His life changed forever after losing his parents. With no one left to turn to, he was taken in by his Aunt Mary. She tried her best to care for him in her tiny, crowded home, but her own life was difficult, and she soon grew tired of the extra burden. One evening, after a hard day's work, Aunt Mary told Daniel, "I can't look after you anymore. You'll have to find your own way." Her voice was strained, and Daniel saw the worry in her eyes, but her words cut him deeply. "Aunt Mary, please, where will I go?" Daniel pleaded. But Mary shook her head, her gaze fixed on the floor. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I don't have anything left to give." And with that, she turned away, leaving Daniel heartbroken and alone. That night, he gathered a few belongings and stepped out into the chilly streets. Life on the streets. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel struggled to survive. Every day, he wandered through crowded markets, hoping for scraps of food. By night, he huddled under storefronts, using cardboard to keep warm. Despite his hardship, he held on to hope, telling himself that one day things might change. One evening, Daniel was searching through a pile of discarded food when an older man named John noticed him. "Hey, young man," John said, his voice gentle. "Are you all alone out here?" Daniel nodded, hesitant but curious. "Come sit with me," John said, patting the bench beside him. As they talked, Daniel shared his story, and John listened patiently. After a pause, John said, "There's a school nearby that gives scholarships to kids who have nowhere else to go. If you're willing to work hard, they'll take care of you and even help you study all the way through university." Daniel's eyes widened. "Really? They'd help someone like me?" John nodded. "Yes, they would. I can take you there tomorrow if you're interested." Hope filled Daniel's heart. He could hardly sleep that night, thinking of the possibility of a new start. A new beginning. The next morning, Daniel followed John to the school, holding his breath as he entered the office. The headmaster, Mr. Smith, looked at Daniel with a stern but kind expression. "We don't accept just anyone," Mr. Smith said, studying Daniel's face. "But I believe in giving everyone a chance. If you work hard and follow the rules, we'll help you through school and beyond." "I promise, sir. I'll work harder than anyone," Daniel replied earnestly. From that day on, Daniel put everything into his studies. He no longer had to worry about where his next meal would come from or where he would sleep. He focused on his education, learning quickly and rising to the top of his class. He knew he had a rare chance, and he was determined not to waste it. Over the years, his dedication paid off. Daniel graduated from high school with top marks and received a scholarship to university, where he decided to study medicine. His dream was to become a doctor and help others who were struggling, just as he once had. Becoming a doctor. After years of hard work, Daniel finally completed his medical training. He wore his doctor's coat with pride, knowing that he had come a long way from the young boy who had roamed the streets. Now, he was ready to give back, dedicating his life to helping those in need. One busy day at the hospital, an emergency patient was rushed in, a frail woman who had collapsed and was in critical condition. Daniel quickly began treating her, not recognizing her face at first. He focused entirely on saving her life, using all his skills and knowledge to stabilize her. Hours later, as the woman began to wake, Daniel sat by her side to check on her condition. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at him, dazed and weak. "Hello," he said gently. "You're safe now. My name is Dr. Daniel." At the sound of his name, the woman's eyes widened in shock. She stared at him, and recognition slowly dawned on her face. It was Aunt Mary, the woman who had once left him to fend for himself on the streets. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Is it really you?" Daniel's heart tightened, seeing the mixture of surprise and regret in her eyes. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Yes, Aunt Mary. It's me." Tears filled Mary's eyes. I didn't recognize you. I never thought I'd see you again." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I was wrong to leave you. I didn't realize what I was doing." Daniel looked at her, feeling a mixture of emotions, but most of all, compassion. "It's okay, Aunt Mary," he said softly. "What's done is done. I've forgiven you." Mary looked at him, a deep sadness in her eyes, but also relief. You saved my life? After everything?" Daniel smiled gently. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Aunt Mary." Moving forward. In the days that followed, Daniel continued to care for Mary until she was well enough to leave the hospital. Before she left, she held his hands and whispered, "Thank you, Daniel. I will never forget this." With a kind smile, he replied, "Take care of yourself, Aunt Mary." From that day on, Daniel became known throughout the city as a doctor who treated everyone with kindness and respect. His story of resilience and forgiveness spread, inspiring many people who faced their own hardships. Daniel had turned his painful past into a life filled with purpose, and his journey became a beacon of hope for others, showing that kindness and forgiveness could truly change lives.